Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. We're in our second episode of Rankin Bass Christmas specials, along with some other things to be included later. And we're starting off with the OG, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Although it was not the first Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer television special. Well,
Really?
I guess the original one was probably a film short, right? With the Fleischer Studios in the 1940s.
Oh, yeah.
It was only about 8 minutes, and it is more accurate to the original Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer storybook, which was created as a Montgomery Ward store marketing gimmick. And the song, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, did not come along until 1 year after the Fleischer Studio short. And so now this Rankin Bass Rudolph is based on the song more than the book.
Yes. So you have there was a 1939 poem by Robert May, and then Johnny Marks did the song adaptation. And Marks also wrote the music and the lyrics for this specials songs, the original ones at least, and tied up some of the production stuff. It was written by Romeo Muller, directed by Larry Romer, narrated by Burl
He's the
Ives
headline
himself.
actor, the Mr. Snowman. He does 2 of the songs, I think. Maybe 3.
Yeah. And he originally wasn't part of the movie. So the character Sam the Snowman, who's the narrator, was originally going to be Yukon Cornelius. And apparently, I'd love to see this. Larry Mann, who's the voice of Yukon, had even recorded all the songs as Yukon. But Ives was brought on last minute to give the special the full power they would need to get it on the networks.
It's almost like the original cut of Disney's Aladdin, where Robin Williams was going to be the genie who was pretending to be the peddler that introduces the movie. Then it's revealed he was in the movie all along. Oh, well. Never mind.
Oh, yeah. And interesting, if you've seen a picture of Ives, he really does look like Sam. But apparently Sam was designed to look like the writer Romeo.
I'm going to save you right now. I'm going to give this a 5 out of 5 whatever. Whether it's Holly Jollies. And that's not to say I don't have questions and confusion about parts of this movie. But in spite of any flaws it has, it gets a 5 out of 5 from me.
Okay, so 5 misfit toys?
That's the most interesting part of this movie, the misfits and the history.
So let me ask you this. Do all of the versions get 5 misfit toys?
Only the one I remember, which is the one I think I just watched. But I don't know the history.
I'm not so sure I watched the one I remember. So this is one of those movies that I just did not know had been changed. I don't really even understand why this stuff happened.
Probably what it came down to.
Well, it kind of did. But so it aired in 1964, and then in 65, they changed it already. It took them 1 whole year because people were pissed off that Santa didn't come and pick up all the misfit toys at the end of the movie. So they added a scene, which I thought looked cheaper, by the way, even when I watched it the first time and didn't even realize it, where he goes and he picks up the toys, and they basically changed the ending, or add a scene to the ending. But they also changed a bunch of other stuff, and I got confused trying to figure all that out.
I don't know if I've ever seen a definitive Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer package that has all versions. So, you know, the comprehensive Rudolph and the inevitable director's cut and the redux and the final cut.
Well, I think if people realized that it had been changed so many times, that they would demand it. So I think that's our job, to raise awareness and demand the Criterion edition.
If any movie deserves a Criterion release, it is this one. It's so brief. Is it even an hour?
It's like 52 minutes. At least the one I watched was, which sounds about right. Yeah, it's like a 90-minute block probably. So I'm gonna go through the edits, and then I'll try to keep it succinct. But feel free to jump in, raise your hand, so to speak, to make comments. So, like I just said, originally aired in 1964. It did not include the closing scene where Santa picks up the misfit toys. That was added in 1965 because people were complaining that Santa didn't fulfill his promise.
CBS? Did people really do that over how this movie ended?
I guess so. I mean, you're killing Santa for all these kids.
Santa does not come across great in this movie. I don't know why you make a point that he doesn't pick up the toys nobody wants. He got a job to do. He can do that later.
No one really, very few people in this
The
movie
worst
come out
is
looking
Donner.
great.
Donner is a deadbeat. I don't like him. I don't like him, man.
Yeah. All right. So we also add in 65, due to time constraints, some of the existing material got trimmed to make room for the scene for the broadcast. Now, sometime around 1968, we should never have to say sometime around 1968, but a credit was added to the beginning stating Rankin Bass present. I guess the company's name change had changed. The company's name had changed, excuse me. Apparently, in the versions before that, this segment only featured a snowflakes animation, which is still present in the background.
Let me interject. The very first thing I saw on the DVD I watched, which was released by a cooperation between Sony and Golden Books, yes, that Golden Books, were newspaper headlines about the storm.
Yes, mine had that too. I don't understand. I don't remember that, and I don't understand why they have it.
Yeah, it doesn't serve any purpose.
Yeah. So the original version without the Rankin Bass present is intact on the 1988 VHS release. Good luck finding that. It's either going to be $1 or $100. I don't know. When the special was rebroadcast in 65, the song "We're a Couple of Misfits" was replaced with a different musical sequence called "Fame and Fortune." I did not see "Fame and Fortune."
And not just a redubbed song, but a completely different, though similar, animated sequence, where they do very similar things, but they cross over a lot more logs, and they do different stuff with the snowman that Hermie has built.
Well, hopefully only appropriate things.
Well, they deface it, but not the way you're talking about.
All right, so the original scene was rediscovered. Again, rediscovered. It was lost and no one knew it because we didn't have the internet. In 1993, and was finally restored in 1998.
That is wild. We were graduating high school by the time this happened.
33 years.
How do I not remember any of this? This is weirder.
Well, and that makes me think we've probably seen both versions.
I don't remember Fame and Fortune, though. It's Misfits.
I don't either. Yeah. It's
weirder than the Berenstain Bears. That's what it is.
Yeah. Remind me of that later. I got something to add about that. So, Fame and Fortune was included as a bonus feature on Sony's Wonders DVD in 2004 to 2004, but has not appeared on any other video releases. So I don't understand why you wouldn't include that as a special feature. My disc had special features. I watched the complete Rankin Bass Christmas collection on Blu-ray. It's the first, basically, high-definition version of this movie. They have special features on the disc,
Does
but they don't have
anything to do with aspect ratio? Well, they didn't put that in the Blu-ray.
I mean, I don't know. If it's a special feature, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
So, starting in 2005, catch this one, CBS's annual presentation of the special, this is a quote from an article, has instead used animation for Fame and Fortune, synced with a poorly edited version of We're a Couple of Misfits audio.
Man, that's awful.
Now, on Freeform's broadcast, they do have the full We're a Couple of Misfits song and sequence, and it's correct. It makes me wonder if CBS doesn't own part of the rights.
I don't know who owns this movie. Yeah.
So Peacock owns it, and it airs on CBS. I don't know. Additionally, in the version with Fame and Fortune, Sam's narration right afterward, where he says, "Now these two didn't have any idea what they were letting themselves in for. The world looked more complicated and dangerous than it seemed when they were snug and warm at home," was shortened slightly. Yeah. So throughout the special, Yukon is seen throwing his pickaxe into the ground at various points and licking it.
I remember that so much. It's like, oh.
It is alluded to throughout the movie that he is looking for gold and silver, but in reality, he is really searching for the elusive peppermint mine. And a scene at the end of the special's original broadcast, but was deleted the next year to make room for the toy scene, Yukon pulls his pickaxe from the ground, licks it, and says, "Peppermint! What I've been searching for all my life! I've struck it rich! I've got me a peppermint mine! Woo!"
That is such an essential character payoff for him.
Absolutely. And this scene was restored in 98, and it looks like it's been on pretty much all the home video releases since then. But still cut from CBS's annual airings. I have to watch that this year.
What is this fake news media doing to the populace here? They're not showing them the real Rudolph.
They must have the rights to a certain version, and not the rights to the restored
and yet,
part.
on this DVD I own, this Sony Golden Books 2004 whatever that had the restored, it advertises on the cover as seen on CBS, and they use the CBS logo.
So one other thing, though there's probably more. The original 64 broadcast had a completely different sequence for the end credits. In the version I saw, they were dropping the Misfit toys out of the sleigh.
It's the way to do it. It's not like Santa intentionally picked what kid was going to get what toy, but maybe already had that figured out and just said, this kid's weird. He'll enjoy that.
Did they not go down the chimneys in 64?
I don't remember if I saw them go in the chimneys. They just drop them out of the sleigh, and they give him an umbrella or something to parachute down with. He's already pressed for time, to be fair. You know, it happens.
All right, so anyways, in the original broadcast, the elf who's with Santa is just dropping off gift boxes, and the gift boxes have all the credits on them. The technical credits. And then the next year, well, he didn't have the toys. They hadn't picked up the Misfit toys. So the following year, when the Misfit toy scene was added, the credit sequence was also redone so that the elf is dropping off some of the Misfit toys.
This is almost as bad as George Lucas and Star Wars.
Listen to this. Oddly enough, the audio from the original credit sequence was restored in 98, despite still using the Misfit toy ending from the 1965 re-edited version. This audio edit was undone on the 2010's DVD and Blu-ray and the 2022 Blu-ray and 4K HD releases. And that's because they switched it to the original 2.0 mono audio track.
This needs to be brought before Congress, I think.
Yeah. So we're not done. At some point in the 1970s, the song, or the sequence with the song, "We Are Santa's Elves," was removed entirely, along with Donner telling his wife not to help him look for Rudolph.
That was in my version.
That's man's work.
The Donner telling her don't come along, but she immediately goes out the door a few seconds later.
Yeah. So now this next thing is, I find to be the oddest of all the oddities that we see. On some VHS releases, based off of a 1965 print, the final scene had a few edits. Apparently it wasn't the final print. The cut to Sam after the sleigh leaves the island of Misfit toys was replaced by a dissolve, and the music fades out slightly later. The whooshing sounds were muted out. The squeaking of Rudolph's nose makes while glowing was shortened and altered slightly. And Santa, when he says Merry Christmas, I guess he said it twice, and it was replaced with something else. They didn't bother to tell us what the something else was.
So I have a memory. Are we getting into Berenstain Bear territory here? About my...
We can. I don't know
if
we have the same point.
That I didn't see when I watched the DVD, and I don't know if it ever exists, but I thought there was... What'd you say?
Toothache?
No, not the toothache. Wait, I do remember a toothache. I do remember the head elf has a tooth removed, right? Did that happen?
Okay, so I'll
go
first because I've kind of ruined your setup. Growing up, I recalled that the snow monster was attacking them, and then in the cave scene, he removes at least one tooth, and then he's nice at that point because he really just had a toothache all along. Now, I looked this up. I am not the only person. Like, this is a whole big thing online of trying to figure out what version of this movie, like, when did this change? How is there an alternate take where he's just really is just a mean monster who wants to eat reindeer?
Well, I always remember there was no hint given that he would reform until Cornelius hauled him into the North Pole. So that wouldn't that go against it if Hermie removed a tooth?
Well, I'm not saying I'm right, but maybe I'm mixing and matching this with another
thinking of maybe
Christmas
a commercial?
Cartoon.
Like maybe they did a Rudolph commercial in the style, and maybe they did that.
I don't know.
Well, I'll give you my memory. It also relates to Abominable. Is it Bumble or Bumble? Bumble? The Bumble? All right.
I think it's Bumble.
I have a memory that you get at least one shot of Donner and Mrs. Donner and Clarice trekking through the snow all together before they get captured in the cave of the snowman. And maybe even you see them taking shelter in the cave, and then the Bumble shows up. I have that memory. I didn't see it on the DVD.
Yeah, I don't. It would make sense because for some reason Rudolph knew he had to go to that cave when he really had no reason to think he had to go to that cave.
That's my major critique of this movie, that Santa Claus tells Rudolph they've been gone for months. Now, Joe, what's going to be your conclusion when you have reindeer missing for months? What are you going to find of these reindeer?
Well, you're going to find bones.
That's my logical conclusion here. months. Multiple. Rudolph apparently traverses the North Pole territory very well, being less than 2 years old. Donner is supposed to be a seasoned reindeer who's flown all over the world. He's terrible. Yukon Cornelius finds the North Pole just fine.
Yeah.
From wherever he's at.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. This movie is a fun movie, but it's got plot holes. But we're still giving it 5.
It's such a weird history. We don't know what happened when, where it might have existed and didn't exist.
Did you know? Yeah. Did you know this movie actually got released in 1164?
1164. What are you talking about?
So yeah, there's some errors in the film. So on the title card,
the
copyright year, the Roman numeral, it's marked the wrong thing. So it's 1164 instead of 1964. And allegedly, I haven't confirmed this part, but allegedly, this has led to elements of the film falling into public domain.
Is that how easy it could happen?
I don't feel like that's how that should work.
My DVD, I'm looking at the back here. This is Golden Book Sony. It says animated program copyright 1964. Here's the key word: renewed 1992 Golden Books Publishing Company. So that would suggest it falls under the 1978 U.S. copyright renewal if you renew it, because it was pre-1978, but supposedly renewed in 1992. At least this version. I don't know about these other versions.
Interesting. So another error in the film, maybe see if you can recognize this. When Hermie meets Rudolph, and they are, how would they put that? They were being independent together.
Independents, rebels.
Playing with the snowman.
Hermie was saying, take this job and shove it. You know, it's a microcosm of the 1960s counterculture, you might say. Rebellious youth.
Yeah. So anyways, they're not very coordinated, and they do some damage to some ornaments that are on a tree. Did you notice how the ornaments, after they fell and landed and stopped moving, then proceed to roll uphill?
Do they leave a trail when they roll uphill?
I think so. So how many reindeer pull Santa's sleigh, Adam?
At the end of it, there's only 6 regular reindeer. I don't remember if they do a scene at the beginning, but Santa has a 6 deer setup at the end of this movie.
Yes, despite naming off all 8.
Wait, he names all 8 at the end?
In the beginning of the movie, they name all the reindeer. Well, it's supposed to be 8, but they're not. There aren't 8. There's 6. And the reason for that is because it took them too much time to make them, and they were expensive. So they ran out of money and they ran out of time, so they had 6. Plus Rudolph.
I'm going to say that's fine, but you should not have included the line about calling them by the traditional names if you were going to do that.
Well, how do you do that on a Rudolph song?
I don't think the 8 reindeer are named in the Rudolph song. Oh, no, it's right at the beginning, isn't it? You know Dasher and... Okay, you can have them all in the movie, but you have to establish they're on a rotation.
Oh, I know. They want you to think that Bumble eats reindeer.
Ooh.
You could have had the 2 graves of the 2 that he got last Christmas.
We get 2 of the familiar 8 who have roles in this movie. Obviously Donner, which is a very weird... I think it's weird to make Donner the father of Rudolph, but whatever. Comet is in the movie, right? Very famous because of the Tim Allen movies, but not so positive in this movie. Bit of a jerk.
No, there's a lot of jerks in this movie.
Again, the counterculture, they're making commentary on the greatest generation, perhaps, who no nonsense can't accept that Rudolph has a shiny red nose that literally glows. There's a light bulb in there. So I'm going to defend the deer a little bit. We're talking about the ethics of Rudolph. You got bright lights and a deer's eyes. Those are not great combinations. You can understand why the reindeer are really upset when they get blinded just by looking at Rudolph. That doesn't justify Santa Claus, though.
So why do you think his nose hums?
Because they really wanted to make it clear it's a light bulb. And the electricity is running through this guy. Wouldn't surprise me. The various insults the reindeers call him. One of them is Neon Nose. Old Neon Nose.
So what do you think about the ethics of yanking all the teeth out of the monster?
Survival.
But for a children's movie, doesn't it make more sense if it's a toothache? Maybe that's where it came from.
I don't know about that backstory. It is funny that Hermie had time to pull all the teeth out of the monster. he was dazed by a boulder. Didn't the Yukon push that on him?
Yeah. Initially snow, and I said, surely a rock's coming, and then it did. But Rudolph, man, that guy's got to have CTE.
Rudolph tried, right? He went in there head first. What was Donner doing? While the monster was going to eat Clarice, or whoever that was he had in his hands.
Well, I mean, I think he recognized that reindeer are not a force to be that's going to be taking down a Bumble monster. Rudolph defends his girl, and the Bumble monster takes a spike off the ceiling and just smashes the crap out of Rudolph, and he should be dead. It was assumed he's dead. All the children were crying in the theater.
See, so does Rudolph really do anything in this movie, or is he just willing to make the sacrifice? And that's why he's a hero, because he's willing to do it.
I mean, really, the dentist is really the hero. Maybe Yukon.
Man, I'm a fan of Yukon.
But
nothing.
I think it's awesome that in a 1964 show, he's walking around with a big gun.
I like a guy who has the confidence to keep going, even after repeated rejection and failure.
Yeah. But anyways, Rudolph he doesn't really do anything. Well, he does at the end.
Which again, we finally made it back to the song. Which is probably, how long did we actually get that? How much of the song is in this movie, runtime wise?
I was starting to wonder at the end if they were actually going to do the song. Because I noticed about 2/3 way through, I'm like, they haven't used Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer yet. And then they started singing other Christmas songs at the end. I'm thinking to myself, I'm not sure it's in it. And then now I'm thinking about it. Surely. Was it in the original?
Surely.
Or was that part of the redo? It's during that scene. I guess they probably used it when they were throwing the generic gifts out of the sled with the credits on them. So I want to give a shout out to the boss elf, by the way. I enjoyed his facial expressions and his angry voice in dealing with his employees.
He's the gunnery sergeant, that elf.
Hermie's like, not happy in my work, I guess. And he just goes off on him.
He's not a great dentist. All he can do is pull and hammer teeth. There's a lot more to dentistry than just yanking teeth out.
Well, he hasn't had the real training that he needs.
Dude,
he's only been working on
one book. Thinks he knows about dentistry. Gonna hammer and chisel my way through it.
I mean, what did they really know about dentistry in 1164?
Fair enough. Other than
just pulling them out. I guess it's historically authentic. You just pull the teeth out.
I like the water effects in this movie better than Mad Monster Party. They do several things with the water that, in my opinion, just looks a lot more natural than that cellophane technique. You have a fish coming out of the water and spraying them. You have the little ice pick where they get on the ice island and float, and that looks better. And you have the Bumble sink into the water and then climb out.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that it's clean blue water.
That helps.
I think murky water is more complicated to make it look good. Well, Adam, you got anything else you want to add to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? You had a very shiny nose.
I like how Rudolph, he gets into it when Clarice tells him he's cute. And then he's oh, cute. I can't barely understand what he's saying. And he's got that goofy he's got that gear shifter cap over his nose or whatever it was. I forget what Donner made.
Initially it was mud. It didn't work real well. And then they get some kind of little cap.
Santa fattens up in a hurry. He's pretty.
Oh yeah, the whole movie he's lean, and Mrs. Claus is trying to get him to eat, and he's just distracted.
Yeah. But one night, I think he bulks up to where he needs to be.
I think one bowl of soup. I think.
Let me ask you a question. This is more since you worked at UPS for all those years and dealt with a lot of fog, I'm sure. The kind of illumination that Rudolph's nose gives in this movie, a light bulb more or less, how effective is that going to be against fog in the sky?
Well, I'd say it's kind of like driving your car down a road with the deep fog. You get about 5 feet of visibility. So I think if they were a true plane, I think that's problematic. I don't think it's going to help them too much. You need a bigger bulb. But for a sled, I don't know, because I don't think it's going to be real helpful for Santa. I think the reindeer might be driving. Maybe Santa's just holding the reins. He's a figurehead, like the Queen of England. He's not really doing the work.
Let's talk about briefly expanded Rankin Bass mythos. Now, Santa Claus says a line when he realizes Rudolph's nose will get him through. And Santa makes the curious reference that nose will cut through any storm they throw at us. Who is they that Santa references?
Mm.
Could it be some villains who appear later on?
Huh.
Some mystical beings? It was an odd inclusion. They throw at us. Really? Okay, Santa. Keep your secrets, or the Banshees. Or the Miser Brothers, or Jack Frost, or who knows?
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer had a very shiny nose. It glowed. He got made fun of by all the bigots. And then we have the tale of morality, where they all come to understand the error of their ways, though I don't think they really do. And they've just found a new creature to take their hate out on.
The Bumble made out better than the Banshee. Better than the Banshee, though.
That is true. That is true. And we get the dentist office set up, and all the elves are going to get their teeth pulled out now. They don't realize that there's only one way to cure that toothache.
That's going to be rough.
So that means all the Christmas candy the next year, none of it will have nuts, because none of them have teeth.
Rough right there.
All right. Well, this has been Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, signing off. We never did introductions. I'm with Adam Winters. I'm Joe Gould.
Merry Christmas.